Hi, and welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long term health conditions in the British higher education system. I'm Kath, and this week I am joined by Jane. They have recently completed their Masters, specialising in the intonation of Hong Kong English for their thesis. And I have known them since their first day in the UK. I'm really excited for Jane to share their story today. So we're just going to get right into it. So hi Jane, how's it going?
I am good.
Good. I am glad to hear. Please could you introduce yourself and just share a little about your background in higher education?
I'm Jane, and I studied linguistics at the University of Oxford for my master's, and I studied at the Chinese University of Hong Kong before that for my bachelor's degree, also in linguistics.
Super cool. So let's get into the meat of the podcast. If you're comfortable saying, kind of, how did your disability or disabilities impact your experience of higher education?
So there are a couple things going on with me. There's the very highly likely autism, which I found out about when I was in undergrad, when I was an undergrad student, and I was in therapy at a time, and my therapist told me to do the autism quotient test without telling me what it was. And I finished the test, I got the scores, and she looked at it and said, "Have you heard of ASD? Do you know what it is?" I said, "No, what's that?"
That's so unsubtle.
And she was like, "Yeah, you should look into it."
What a way to find out.
Yeah. Um, Growing up, I never, well, I always knew that there was something different about me, but I never thought of it that way. Autism wasn't something that was even remotely close to what I thought I had. I had a lot of words to describe myself. Socially awkward, introverted, quiet, a nerd, things like that. But yeah, that was learning about autism and learning about other people's experiences, especially those who learned about it later in life, was a revelation to me, and it shifted a lot of the ways I think about my life and my relationships, and also my family's life, because well, it kind of runs in the family. Many of these traits run in the family. So yeah, so that was the autism, and um I it obviously impacted me in many ways in higher education, which we're going to get into later in the podcast. But yeah, that was it. And so, like, my specific type of autism is, well, I don't have a formal diagnosis, but when I looked into it, I can identify many traits that I have that are typical. Things like, for me, it's mostly difficulty with social interactions. And I also have sensory issues with taste and smell and touch specifically. And I have very intense interests that take over my life and define the way I view the world. And I also rely very heavily on very fixed schedules. And so that's the autism. And I also have a couple other things that I don't necessarily think of as disabilities, but they are long-term conditions that affect me, um, that I also need accommodation for in higher education. So one thing is, I have had COVID twice, after the second infection, I became very, very weak. My immune system became very vulnerable. I would get sick once a month, and every time it would last for a month. And any kind of cold, any kind of virus, I would catch it. And it would give me this dry cough that doesn't go away for weeks and weeks. That was excruciating. Now I'm better, but for a whole year, it was the main thing that was affecting my life and my studies. And then there's this other condition that I have had, I suspect, since the start of my puberty, but I only recently got diagnosed with, and it's called adenomyosis. And when I explain to people what adenomyosis is, I usually say, well, have you heard of endometriosis? Because I think out of these two conditions, endometriosis is the more visible one. I usually say, well, adenomyosis is just like endometriosis in its symptoms and the available treatments, except it has a different underlying structural cause. Adenomyosis is when the cells in the endometrium that belong in the endometrium kind of invades the uterine wall, the myometriosis, and makes the walls of the uterus become thicker, and it gives you extremely long and painful and heavy periods, and it's very debilitating. And it was unlucky in a way that I got diagnosed with adenomyosis when I was juggling multiple research projects at once. And the thing with adenomyosis, as well as endometriosis, is that there is no effective treatment other than cutting out your uterus, a hysterectomy. That is the only way to cure it. There are ways to manage the symptoms, but it's different for everyone. You have to try different treatments, and some of the treatments are going to make it worse for you. And that's what happened to me for a whole year during the last year of my master's degree.
Yeah, I remember coming to Oxford actually and seeing you, and it was like, how's it going? It was like, well, maybe not so great right now. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, it was, I think it was the most difficult time in my life, full stop.
But as we'll see though, you made it through. You did an incredible job that if I was in your position, I don't feel like I could have done. It was like watching you do this and kind of texting you was absolutely incredible. Kudos. But yeah, graduating, that was a heavy experience for you.
Yes, it was. I was very relieved when I got my results on time, and I did better than I thought I would.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, so good. Right. Let's pop on to this next question. So obviously you're quite unique, because I think all of my guests so far, maybe barring one or two, were educated exclusively in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know, there was one or two. But quite a few of the guests on the show have been at UK universities all the way through. Obviously, you've come from Hong Kong, where you and then you came straight to Oxford. From like a disability and a health standpoint, what was the transition to coming to the UK like for your masters? And just as a little like bonus thing, what was that transition like when you were like coming from a university in Hong Kong?
Right. So to answer that question, I think I also need to contextualize the fact that I grew up in mainland China. So there were two transitions for me. First, from a public education system in China to a university in Hong Kong, and then from the Chinese University of Hong Kong to the UK.
Gotcha.
So obviously growing up in China, I never conceived of myself as somebody who needed to worry about these things. And I didn't need any support. I didn't think I needed any support. I didn't have any significant long-term health conditions that I was aware of that really made it difficult for me to study. And it was also, I also formed the habit of thinking that, well, I am one of the people who are healthy, so I don't need support, I don't need help, right? I was not practiced in asking for help, asking for accommodation. I was not practiced in facing the possibility that my academics is gonna suffer because of my health and because of my neurodivergence. It was not something that I faced before university. And then I went to Hong Kong, and then I had some difficulties, mostly due to, well, the social aspect of being autistic, and coupled with other aspects of, moving. And even though I come from a city that is very close to Hong Kong, like linguistically and culturally, it was still a big transition for me. The first time I left home, the first time I left mainland to live long term in a different place. And that was a shock to the system. That was the first time I needed to. That was also the first time I experienced something that I later would realize was a burnout. And it lasted for a very long time, and I struggled for a very long time. And it was the first time I realized, oh, I need to ask for help. I need to ask for accommodations. And I also need to detach the way I value myself from my grades and my academic performance. It was the first time I realized I should stop identifying as the student who is good at studying. And I realized that was a harmful way to do it, regardless of whether you are disabled or not. It's a harmful way to view yourself.
Yeah, and I think that I've seen that because a lot of, like, I guess people I've even interviewed here, like I had Eleanor on, one of our fellow Oxford friends, a while ago, and I think we kind of jumped on this as well. And it was very much like, if you have a hyperfocus or a special interest and it's related to your schoolwork especially, I think then it can become very easy to link your kind of academic identity to your self-worth. And that ends up just being a world of pain.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I actually have just a quick question.
Yes.
Should be super quick fire. So you were educated in mainland China.
Yes.
Which is, at least like from an international perspective, notoriously quite intense.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this. Did you find the kind of your perhaps unknowing reliance on routines and that kind of helped you navigate that system?
Oh yeah, it was extremely helpful. I was an extremely privileged and lucky case in the public education system in China. It was kind of the environment I thrived in. Well, I still have a lot of trauma from my middle school and high school, mostly being in a extremely competitive place, and living the kind of life where this is the only thing you're supposed to be focusing on, studying and exams every other week, and all of your rankings are going to be published, pasted on the wall at your school in the hallway for everybody to see, of every single exam. big and small, and it had a larger impact on my mental health than I realized at the time. Yeah, so it was pretty intense, and it also contributed to the fact that I don't think I'm good at asking for help, and it also contributed to the fact that I attach my self-worth to my academic performance so much.
Yeah. That wasn't on the questions. I was just really interested. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know, like, because with my history and my specific circumstances, it's probably necessary to clarify that.
No, but it's really interesting because obviously I'm born and raised in the UK, so I don't have these experiences of like education systems in other cultures. And I know that a lot of people, I think you're kind of similar, kind of came to the UK, saw the university culture and went, oh, this is weirdly chill, especially for Oxford. I think I remember having that conversation with you.
I think so. I don't know. It was probably me or someone else, maybe. I do feel that way.
Yeah.
Compared to my friends who are studying at universities in Beijing, like extremely prestigious universities in China. Oh, their schedules are intense. And it's intense in a way that's different from a master's degree at Oxford is intense.
Yeah. Different expectations of intense, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you obviously came from, you kind of talked about your experiences coming from Hong Kong. Sorry, going to Hong Kong from mainland China. Do you have anything else that, like, when you specifically transitioned to the UK that you noticed? Or was it mainly when you, like, went to your bachelor's and found there was a lot of differences in that transition?
There are a lot of differences in both transitions. So when I was in Hong Kong, all of my support came from individual lecturers who I asked individually, and they had different reactions to my asking for accommodation and for support. There wasn't a established system for people like me to ask for help. If I wanted to ask for official disability support, I would need to have a diagnosis. And I guess I was lucky that a lot of my lecturers were very accommodating. Some of them didn't even need me to explain what was going on. They would just give me the extension, or they would just promise me that as long as you submit something before this date, I'm going to let you pass, because it's not what a lecturer even told me that it's not what I do, not letting people pass if they've done the work. And that was drastically different from the kind of disability support I got from Oxford, where everything was structured, where I was from the beginning supported by a pre-established disability. What does it stand for? DSA? DAS.
DAS, yes. It's
Disability Advisory Service.
Yes, it is.
And there is a predetermined package for people with autism or people who are seeking an autism diagnosis. Extra time in exams, access to written materials, and your lecturers and your tutors are going to be notified. And you don't ever need to individually communicate with your tutors and lecturers unless you want to about your disability and your conditions. And well, I did benefit from extra time in exams, so that was good. I don't really have a complaint other than the fact that I didn't realize that I would qualify when I was admitted to Oxford. I kind of assumed that, and they didn't tell me that you don't technically need a autism diagnosis to ask for this support, as long as you have a GP's note saying that you are seeking a diagnosis and you're aware that the wait list is very long, they will give you the support. And it was easy like that.
Yeah, wait lists are hellishly long. And I think I actually have to remind, like, a lot of British students don't realize that as well. They're like, I'm waiting for a diagnosis, I'm struggling. I'm like, go tell them that.
Yeah.
Like, it's genuinely like a weirdly kept secret. And I don't like that fact. Especially because some waiting lists are like 5 years long. It's crazy. But right, let's hop into this to this next question. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Thank you. We kind of touched on this a bit in the intro, but did you encounter any obstacles during your time in higher education, maybe more specifically like in Oxford now? Did you overcome them, and if so, how?
Right. So I think most difficulties I encountered were due to my my long COVID and adenomyosis. Of course, autism made it difficult for me to do the kind of networking and socializing needed sometimes in academia, because you need to meet people, you need to talk to people, you need to go to conferences and chat. And sometimes it's about making the kind of connections that would give you opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have. And I'm not sure I like that fact, that we rely on this kind of casual acquaintances, this type of networking so much. Sometimes I appreciate that. Sometimes I think that it could feel too transactional for me. But other than that, I don't think I faced a lot of obstacles at Oxford due to my autism. I think the minute I came to Oxford, the first obstacle was that I had COVID, and then I had long COVID, and British people don't wear masks. And buildings in Oxford are not very well ventilated.
Nope, they're very old.
And I was living in constant fear and anxiety that I would catch the flu or a cold, and this time it's going to make me sick in bed for a whole month and making it impossible for me to work. During the first year of my degree, it was a constant struggle to get work done. And it was also a constant struggle to communicate to people at lectures, and at meetings. I joined the college choir. I tried going to MCR meetings regularly. And it was a struggle to communicate to people that I would like you to open the window. Yes, I know it's cold, but it's also important to ventilate so that I don't infect other people, and there's a lower chance of me getting infected as well. I gave up, didn't even think about asking people to wear masks, because I had the feeling that people would not be happy to do that. It was really difficult for me to not feel resentment about it. I would constantly think about the fact that if it was in Hong Kong, people would be very willing to wear masks, for example. And that was difficult, and there was no way that I could solve that. I did write emails to lecturers and to the department about ventilation. It made a little bit of a difference sometimes. And there are also a few course mates who voluntarily wore masks to tutorials and lectures, which I really, really appreciate. But other than that, there was no solution for me, and the only way was to wait until my immune system got stronger and I didn't have to feel so anxious about it all the time. And that was one thing. And another obstacle was due to, of course, my adenomyosis. And I don't think I don't think that's something that I could have avoided, because I always, it's something that I always have. It's something that I had to deal with sooner or later, and it was already affecting me on a monthly basis. I had to try treatments, and the first treatment I tried didn't work. It made things worse for me. I hope it's okay to say that it made me bleed for over 70 days in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. You're sharing your story. That is
Yeah,
intense.
and and for context, I'm trans, and it's extremely distressing to begin with to bleed so much, let alone bleeding for every single day for this long. And all kinds of old mental health issues came back during those 3 months I was on the medication that I was trying. And there was no way for me to predict that. There was no way for me to avoid that, because there are many different treatments for adenomyosis. You don't know which one is going to work for you specifically unless you try. And many of these treatments are hormone based. And that means your body is naturally going to take a long time to take months and months to get used to it, for your levels to stabilize and for improvements to show. The most effective treatment for adenomyosis to date, the hormonal coil, takes up to 6 months to stabilize.
Oh, to be fair, yeah, that's, I think, similar for a lot of like internal contraception, right? Because it's similar to the implant.
Oh, yeah.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, most treatments for adenomyosis are also contraception.
That's interesting. I guess because it reduces things, and
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was during the time I was working on my thesis.
I remember.
Yes, it was very bad. For months, I couldn't get any significant amounts of work done. And all that I could do was depend on the fact that I have an adenomyosis diagnosis and I can apply for extensions. I applied for 2 months worth of extension for my thesis, I think.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say, like, we fell out of touch for just a few months after I left Oxford.
Right, yeah.
And I was just sat on a bench in college having a wonderful time. And then I was like, oh my God, it's Jane. And it was just like, how have you been? And it was like this just wave of like, everything medical is terrible. And I was like, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Though to be fair, one more person I do want to shout out, you have an incredible partner, right? Who's like kind of helped you through that whole thing.
Yeah. I am extremely lucky. They really helped a lot with that period of time. I forgot how many times they would stay on call with me until I fell asleep, because it was so difficult.
Oh, bless
And
you. Yeah.
They're in my acknowledgements on my thesis.
Good, as they should be. I think I made it on there as well somehow.
Oh yes, you did.
You sent me the picture
Yes.
of your thesis and I was like, I was at the train station leaving Oxford, like on the verge of tears, just like this is the cutest thing I've ever seen. It was so articulate. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that. So, next question. Obviously you had a lot of stuff going on. Luckily you got everything in and you passed and it was wonderful and I'm super proud of you. If we're thinking of like kind of extra super curricular stuff or just leisure stuff for a sec, were there any kind of clubs, societies or initiatives that made a significant positive impact kind of on you when you were at uni?
Right, so as I mentioned earlier, I participated in quite a few extracurricular activities. I was part of the college choir for a while. It didn't work out because, 100 people singing all at once in an enclosed space weekly was not good for my long COVID. So I quit after a bit, but it was enjoyable. And then I tried going to MCR meetings regularly, but then I stopped also within the year because of the same concerns about getting flus and colds over and over and my weak immune system. But there's one thing that I did attend regularly, and it was the trans and non-binary tea, a weekly social event held by the LGBTQ Society at Oxford. And it was really nice. It kind of gave me a regular event, regular situation for me to socialize with people, to talk to people. It was the thing that I would go to almost every week. And the people there are also very accommodating about my long COVID. When I would ask if it's okay to open the window because I have a weak immune system or I've been sick, they would be very understanding, even if it was cold and at night and there was draft. But yeah, they were very understanding. And there are still, I think to this day, a couple people who always wear masks to the meetings. And it's really nice that at least in this very small group, we have normalized the fact that, some people wear masks to these meetings and it's fine. We can still have a good time, and it's not a big deal. And I also, I met my partner at Trans T, so I have to. It changed my life in a very significant way, and yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely to hear. I love that.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who, are disabled or are neurodivergent in different ways who are who regularly go to the meeting, and we get to talk about these things and get to share our struggles, things like that. It was very nice.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Ari, who's obviously like a proud trans man, a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how like the kind of LGBTQ plus safe spaces are like really good, and they're starting to get like disability officers in, or they've had them for a while, right? And they've just turned into just really nice, inclusive spaces.
Yeah.
It's just lovely. Right, we're gonna do a little bit of rapid fire.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
So, answer this however you please. But have you ever experienced any instances of kind of any disabilities or differences proving helpful in a higher education setting?
For the most part, no.
Fair.
My special interests are usually not that related to my academics. I'm obsessed with knitting. I doubt how relevant that is to linguistics. But I do thrive on fixed schedules and structures. And even though in higher education I had to create that kind of structure for myself, but once the structure was in place, it was very good for me. And it made me very productive. It made it easy for me to perform well academically, and I'm extremely lucky that that's something that I have. I know a lot of people who struggle with forming habits that help with productivity and things like that, but it was never really a problem for me.
Oh, that's super wonderful. Yeah, I kind of had the same thing where I had the routine and it was like amazing. I think it came a little too late for me, but I'm so glad that that's like something
Oh,
that you thrive on. That's
oh yeah,
wonderful.
I love routines.
Oh, you know what? I love a good routine. They're wonderful. They're the structure that I put the chaos around. So, next question. Is there anything you would wish you had known about university before starting?
I wish I wish I had known that I wish I'd known how to ask for help. I wish I had the kind of practice in, and I wish I had a little bit less pride about, you know, about my academic performance and admit that, yeah, I'm struggling and I need help.
You're not the first person to say that. I find that, especially kind of within the neurodivergent community, a lot of people kind of do things out of spite or do it
Yeah.
like kind of very independently, and then when it comes to asking for help, they either don't have the vocabulary or they turn their nose up because they forget how helpful help can be. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's a skill. I think
Yeah.
it's a skill that you kind of have to acquire, and it's something that, you know, it takes a long time, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But like, yeah, no, I get that firsthand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an acquired skill, and all we can do is practice. Right. Couple questions left. So we've kind of been focusing on your personal story. If we were to zoom that out to a societal perspective, how do you think we can improve the experiences of higher education as both kind of individuals and as a society?
So I think there are a few different stages for this kind of improvement to happen. And for any kind of societal change, to be honest, but we're talking about higher education, and we're talking about making higher education more accessible and accommodating for people with disabilities and chronic health conditions. It always comes with awareness raising, right? It always comes with knowing that there's a problem. And I think we are at that stage in mainland China at the moment. And we are kind of well into that stage of awareness raising in Hong Kong as well. But in Hong Kong, we're a few steps ahead in this aspect from mainland. But just raising the awareness wouldn't be enough if you don't take actions to solve problems. And there are short-term patches that you can apply. There are short-term fixes. But if you want long-term solutions, if you want to establish some long-term structures and to maintain that structure and to update it, to update your policies and structures around the support system, it's important for universities to have money. It's important to give the people who care about making these changes the money and the job to make that change happen. And when you give people long-term jobs instead of fixed short-term contracts where there is less stability, people will care more. People will naturally care more about the institution they're working for and the students who are studying there. They would be more willing and have more energy to put into making these changes happen. And I think in the UK, especially, money is a root problem for many, many problems.
Everywhere.
Yeah. The fact that universities have less and less fundings now, I think in the early 2010s, there was a huge cut of university fundings. And then recently, the UK government is making it difficult for international students to stay in the UK and therefore making it less attractive for them to come to the UK to study. And UK universities depend on international fees. And when there's less international students, universities have less income. And that's a big problem.
Yeah. And you get fewer things maybe put into disability because you need to, you can have the money, but it's also where you invest it, right?
Yeah.
And that's like a major, major thing as well. But no,
Yeah.
I like that answer. I really do like that answer. Right, we're nearly there, a couple more. So we've kind of touched on this a little, but kind of what and how are you doing nowadays? And kind of how have your past experiences in higher education affected this?
Right. So I recently graduated. I had my graduation ceremony the month before last month as the time of recording. And I've been doing job hunting and house hunting. I moved to a new place out of my bad student accommodation situation. It was really bad. Water was coming out of my walls and things, but yeah, not the point. I've been doing job hunting. I'm a little bit lost because I don't have a lot of experiences working in the corporate world. I had always been preparing myself for a career in academia, but then long COVID happened, adenomyosis happened, and I realized that I wasn't ready to pursue a PhD. So I need to take a gap year or two and find work. I'm a little bit lost. I don't know what my CV is good for. I'm still finding out, but I'm in a good position to do that. I have the time. I can afford being jobless for a little while. So that's good. I guess the difficulty is to realize that there is no ladder of life, so to speak, that you have to climb step by step. You have to go to university and find a job at this time. If you're late, then you are behind everyone else. There isn't a competition like that. And because of my health, I couldn't focus on job hunting. So I didn't have a job lined up right after graduation. And I think about that fact a lot, and it's one of the major sources of anxiety for me at the moment. But I'm trying to remind myself that I was trying my best to stay alive, literally. So I should not blame myself for not having a job lined up immediately after graduation.
People put a lot of things on students. I will just mention this because I think it's good for listeners to know as well. At least the 2 unis I've been to in the UK had lifetime careers support. So Oxford actually has the career services available for graduates. You just need to register online. I am bad at asking for help and I haven't used it yet, but I want to let you know it's an option.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list. I have registered. It's on my to-do list to make an appointment.
Maybe we should keep each other accountable to make the damn careers appointments.
Yes.
We'll get there. Right, last question. So we've kind of had this big discussion about kind of your story. It's spanned multiple countries, of health conditions, and it's been a lot, frankly. I'm very proud of you making it to kind of like the other side of this experience.
Thank you.
If we were to like take everything and we were kind of going to condense it down into like a short message, what is the one key takeaway that you would like listeners to remember from your story?
I've thought about it for a long time, to be honest. And I think I've found something that's more or less satisfying. So what I experienced was unique to me, but also universal in a way, because a lot of us have struggles and difficulties with things that to others around us are as easy as breathing. And it's not fair. It's not because of these people's merit or because we're inherently less deserving of these things, of having it easy. And for a long time, and still I feel very resentful and bitter about not having it easy as a disabled person, as somebody with chronic health conditions, as someone who is queer, as a foreigner in this country. I just have to struggle with things that other people don't have to. At the end of the day, I have to remind myself that being resentful and bitter all the time isn't something that I want to be as a person. And sometimes the solution is realizing that other people struggle in their own ways too. Sometimes the solution is to realize that the thing that brings you suffering and struggles also bring you a lot of happiness and joy, also shaped who you are, and you wouldn't exchange that for anything else. Sometimes the solution is to just give yourself the time and space to feel bitter and feel resentful. And then you take a nap, you go to bed, you eat something, and you come back and realize that having these emotions all the time doesn't help with building the kind of solidarity and compassion and empathy and relationships that you need to, make the world slightly better and make make it so that there's a little bit less suffering and make it so that the world is a little bit less unfair. Yeah, that's the takeaway.
I really like that. A lot of the comms that I use, I put a quote at the top, and I'm gonna trawl through that, and I'm gonna find the quote, and I'm gonna be like, this is the bit. This is the bit of the episode. I love that. Right, Jane, we made it. We're done. We've done the questions.
Yes.
Let's close this up. So, the HE Enabled podcast is a show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long-term health conditions in the British higher education system. If you have any experience in the British higher education system, I don't care what job or role or student you were or how long ago, I am always looking for people to come on. The contact email is henabled@gmail.com, and it's also in the description for this show. Likewise, if you know someone who might like this, share it to a friend. Can't hurt. Right, Jane, we're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.